We are live here. Pat Leonard, Giants live Q&A before the Panthers preseason game. Thanks for joining me, guys. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube page here at PL on NFL and on Instagram, same handle. Uh, we are here to talk about what Brian Daboll's team looks like, what Joe Shane's decisions are coming up, and anything you want to know approaching the second preseason game, the first at MetLife Stadium against Frank Reich's Carolina Panthers. Should start right off by noting the Giants just sent out an interesting message to people who cover the team saying that there will be no photography or videography allowed outside of their locker room prior to games due to security protocols that the league is putting in place. So I just want you to know, the loyal followers, those of you who appreciated my arrival videos last season, that they can try, but they're not going to hold us down, right? We're going to find a way. We're going to find a way at the very least to bring you the pregame fit, me game day ready. And we're going to find a fun way to do it. Is the NFL and the Giants might want to suppress fun. They might want to control content for their own financial purposes, or they might just want to be tight with security because that's the way things are going. But they're not going to stop us from bringing you fun content. They're not going to stop me. And frankly, don't appreciate the tone of these new rules and the fact that the Giants and the NFL, or the Giants in this case, apparently seem like they can do whatever they want. So it'll be interesting to see if the Professional Writers Association, the league, the Giants, how that all gets sorted out. But certainly unilateral rules that are put in place to arbitrarily limit access are not the way that things should be going. But thanks for joining me, Hunter. Let's get started right now. Are Danny and Waller playing? I would think they are. I mean, Jones will. Darren Waller, that'll be interesting to see. I think you'll see him on the field a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, he's one of those players. So to get right ahead of this, because I'm sure other people are going to ask it too, like how much of the starters playing against the Carolina Panthers. I expect most of the starters to play, if not all. But Hunter, to your point and question, there could be a handful of guys, like let's say Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, for example, who Daboll could and the Giants might just decide it's not even worth 3 snaps to see potentially if this guy's going to twist his ankle and then we're going to miss him for a game against the Dallas Cowboys we really need. So it's hard for me without them announcing it. You can't just say you can't know that they're definitely going to play every single one of these guys. But I can tell you that this week's practice was definitively a preparation for the starters on both sides of the ball to play. And you could see that in how the depth chart was settling in on both sides of the ball, obviously with the exception of offensive guard, where they have a 3-man rotation every single play in the final practice preparing for the game between Josh Azudu, Ben Bredesen, and Mark Lewinsky. How am I doing, Hunter? I'm doing great. Thanks for always coming in here, supporting the pod, supporting the live Q&A, and just being a part of this dialogue. I love doing it. And, these are a lot of fun. Mark Thompson says, hi, Pat. Trust you were good. Came in at the end of your discussion, so not sure you were talking about, except it seemed to be a concern about access and player info. Hey, Antonio, how you doing? Yeah, Mark, just the Giants announcing today that we are no longer allowed to film videos or take photos outside of the locker room. They said it's due to a screening process that is mandated by the league and is new. I'm not clear on, though, whether it appears that the team is deciding, not the league, that we cannot take these videos and photos. So that'll be worthwhile to see. But Mark, basically my point was those arrival videos I brought to you guys last year, if they're going to refuse to let us take videos of players walking into the locker room, I mean, first of all, yeah, great. Okay. Yeah, I'm spending my time on more worthwhile things than limiting reporter access to videos of players. First of all, the players like it because they're wearing a lot of interesting outfits that they've picked out throughout the offseason, specifically for those days to look a certain way, to be game ready. There are people who cut these guys' hair, outfit them with suits, whatever, that they want their names out there too. And so it's a really interesting kind of community of people saying, well, yeah, the game's important, but so is the look good, feel good, play good aspect of it. And so I think this will be a huge blow to content if the Giants really hold this up. The fact that if they're going to limit it to what their reporters, what their in-house media does, and what the NFL people do, sure, yeah, it's not going to get shared as much because you're limiting the actual people who cover the team, the objective reporters and journalists from covering the team, from having any kind of access. And really, it's kind of like a stiff arm to the people like me who put in so much sweat to try and do this the right way, form good relationships, and really do content like this that is just fun. Like, it's just fun content, right? It's just fun content. It doesn't hurt anybody. I know I've been in stadiums before, like in London, for example, where the security doesn't want you videoing the players coming through the security line. So whether it's the metal detectors or whatever the case is, they don't want it on video what the security entering the stadium looks like for obvious reasons, right? They're trying to prevent major issues and any kind of issue of somebody with the wrong intentions coming in. But you can, and I did work around in London, you can work around those things and just take videos, but point the camera in a certain way where you're not divulging anything about the security screening. So there doesn't have to be a unilateral rule about not filming players, coaches, and people arriving. You can do both. So we'll see where that goes. But yes, I'm fired up about it today because I just found out about that. Antonio says, do you think the Giants add Anthony Barr? They had a visit with him yesterday. I do think they add a linebacker, Antonio, at some point. They do like how Micah McFadden has played. So do I. But I do think you need depth. And also, let's face it. Does your depth chart at linebacker look better with an Anthony Barr or a veteran plus Okereke and McFadden playing well in that even you have a rotation now, you have some depth, and maybe you're not asking Micah McFadden to play 70 snaps or 50 snaps, he's playing 30 or whatever the case may be. Yes, the team would look better that way. They do have other issues though. Offensive guard, corner, it's not the only position. It looked like coming out of that visit, a signing wasn't imminent. I know he's visited, Barr has the Saints, he's visited the Giants. So it'll be interesting to see where else he goes, or maybe he's just going to wait closer to the season to really find out from the Giants end how desperate they feel they are for him and whether they're going to give him certain incentives or whatever he's looking for, which we don't know exactly the contract he is seeking. Let's see. Vincent says, thank you for the Q&A. Thanks for being here, Vince. Which running backs do you think see the most work tonight? Should we expect to see lots out of Corbin? Yes, expect a lot out of Corbin. They really like how he's been doing. Jeff Nixon, the running backs coach, I was talking to him directly yesterday, and he said, I really, emphasis on a really, like how Jayshon is progressing. He said he's becoming a 3-down back, and that means they've been asking him really two things. Him and Eric Gray, the young guys, they want two things to be able to trust them implicitly: know the offense in and out and be able to pass protect. And Jeff Nixon said that Corbin pass protected really well in Detroit. And obviously, you guys are watching too. Listen, Saquon has popped some big ones. We know he can. But outside of him, the only running back who has popped anything of note and consistently is Jayshon Corbin. He's had, I think, 3 runs, 2 in practice and then the 33-yarder in the game. They all, I believe, maybe have come out off the same play. But, he's got some giddy up to him. He's tough. He can go in between the tackles. Frankly, I think they should try him in the return game too, because they're giving Eric Gray a shot, their draft pick, but I think Corbin is faster and, has more moves. So that'll be interesting to see. But yes, I think a lot of Eric Gray tonight, a lot of Jayshon Corbin tonight. James Robinson, I don't think ends up, making the roster. Maybe you see a little bit of him later in the game today, or more of him later in the game. I think especially if they even play Saquon, he's not playing a lot. And then even Matt Breida, he's a veteran. You don't need to, run him into the ground. Plus you have Gary Brightwell, who is out with an injury. So I think a lot of Corbin and a lot of Gray tonight, especially. Let's see. Doug says, how am I going to get the alpha videos? That's what I was saying. They're still coming. We're still going to do it. They're not going to hold us down. The arrival videos will happen, at least for what I look like. The Giants want to keep secret what they look like or try to monopolize that content. That's fine, man. We'll find other ways. Keep being unfriendly. Keep locking it down. Keep thinking that makes a difference in what your record is at the end of the season, whether I see 2 plays at the start of your practice or whether I see what you guys look like walking into the stadium. It doesn't matter, but keep thinking that. Mark says it's probably to allow NFL Network to have first access. Yeah, I'm not sure because I think it might be Giants imposed and not necessarily the league. We're kind of working that out right now, trying to find out what it is and why. Do you think we keep 4 running backs? Mark says. Well, I think it's Saquon and Breda. I guess, the way it's trending is, they really obviously want to give Gray an opportunity. Yeah, I could see 4 because, you know, in the way they came into camp, you had Brightwell as the kick returner. You had Gray as the rookie on punts, also seeing some kick return opportunities. Yeah, I guess 4 is in the cards potentially. Though it's interesting. They have Paris Campbell in the slot, who they also can use as a running back or running jet sweeps. When Wan'Dale Robinson gets healthy, you have him on the roster too. So if you look at the current running back group now, I think there's fewer of them end up being kept on the active roster than you would want or expect, especially once Wan'Dale gets back into the mix. But we don't know exactly when that's going to be either with Wan'Dale. But yeah, it's definitely, I think right now, Barkley, Breda, and then to me, Jay Corbin has been the standout after them. But interesting to see, right? Because Jay is an undrafted free agent from last year. Eric Gray's your actual draft pick, right? Those things get factored in as well. They shouldn't, but they do. But we'll see. I mean, I think Jay work against the Panthers with Daniel Jones and the first team offense, if he gets any of those opportunities, especially, that'll be something to really hone in on. Let's see. Are the starters playing tonight? Tibbs, Neal, Aziz. Yeah, Thibodeau seemed to be indicating that he is definitely playing. Like you said, I'm looking forward to working on, my craft and stuff, talking about the game. Yeah, I think most of the starters end up playing a little bit in this game against the Panthers. I just was saying right at the start, I was talking about how I think there's a chance there's still a handful of guys who don't get on the field. I don't know. Brian Daboll is doing his best Bill Belichick imitation, won't tell anybody anything for whatever reason, competitive advantage, who knows? But I think, you look at the way that the Giants want to prepare for the season. They do want to get guys on the field, but they also have some guys that it's just not worth it to them to risk anything. So I think Darren Waller could conceivably be one of those guys who still doesn't play. We saw it at practice the other day. Dexter Lawrence, Darren Waller, Andrew Thomas all sat out and got a rest day. Now, that could also be they are going to see a few game snaps, and Daboll saying, well, then we're just going to hold them out of a full practice because we want to keep their real reps down. But that'll be something to see. Yes, I do expect most of the starters to play. Wired Celery says, thoughts on Darnay's roster spot seems to be suspicious based on Adoree moving more inside. Yeah, no, I think there's no guarantee Darnay Holmes makes the team. I think that, at the slot position, the Giants didn't have a solution there, and that's why they're showing the potential solution that they have at the moment with Adoree in the slot. You look at their corner depth, you have Hawkins, Adoree Jackson, Deontay Banks. And then after that, you're looking at Cordell Flott, who's a draft pick of this regime, who is starting to see a little bit of practice work on the outside. You would have to imagine because they want him to take the next step. You'd have to imagine he's going to be in that rotation on the final roster. And then after that, you're probably adding guys, right, off of other teams' waiver claims, maybe a cheap free agent signing. But you have Amani Aruwariye as a veteran who came over from the Lions, kind of a long player. Maybe he can give you something. And then outside of that, though, like the one thing about Darnay is he does blitz pretty well. He knows the system. Great teammate, kind of team guy. So I'm not saying definitely he's going to be cut, but I think I went into this camp thinking he was possibly going to be cut and had an uphill climb to make the roster. And it's only strengthened my belief that I've seen him, be bumped down in that slot rotation and playing with, third, fourth stringers at times. Yeah, certainly he is on the bubble. Let's see. Is McKeithen getting tackle reps? No, interestingly enough, he's been playing a lot of guard, so that'll be something to watch too. I think they had him at right guard with the second string offensive line rotating in at practice this week. So that'll be something to watch for sure. How he handles that. The North Carolina product, he was a tackle, of course, ends up getting hurt last year. maybe they can get something at guard from him. They certainly need something at guard from somebody. Of course, please go and watch my interview with Justin Pugh, because after we get off of this live Q&A, I really do think that the Giants and Pugh would end up being a good fit, to ramp him up and be a potential stopgap and filler and reinforcement and starter come into the early mid part of the season there, as he got cleared and gets cleared for his knee. He's already been doing these offensive line workouts and could come into a camp, kind of ramp up, and then take a spot left guard ideally. But this is stuff that the Giants have to be thinking about. Absolutely. Mark says, Doug said more likely for 4 running backs or 4 tight ends. Well, your tight ends are Waller, Bellinger, and then you have Sweeney and Cager. And then at running back, you have, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I think one of those tight ends probably, because Waller's going to be on the field so much. That's a really good question. I haven't done my 53-man projection yet, but Cager is a guy who I think he'll be in the building, whether he ends up on the initial active roster or not. He'll be in the building. Sweeney really has played well. I guess you're probably looking at, with Wan'Dale Robinson and Parrish Campbell able to help the running back position and room as well. Maybe more likely they keep more tight ends, especially for special teams work as well. And then the running backs end up on the practice squad coming up. Let's see. Mark says, I imagine this is the only game starters will play, especially since we play the Jets in the regular season finale. Yeah, or in the regular season. Yes. I would expect that, just like last year, pretty sure. Starters in this second preseason game, but then resting in the final. Patrick John says, will the Giants keep 4 tight ends on cutdown day? Waller, Bellinger, Cager, and Sweeney will be on the roster. Yeah, no, I think as I was just working that out right now, I was saying to myself, well, who am I cutting there? I think Cager's a guy maybe you could try to sneak down to the practice squad, but it's all about, of course, making do with what they have at the receiver position as well. And he's a converted receiver who plays tight end, but who could still give you something out wide, right? You're looking for him to help as a blocker as well, but he sees plenty of first team work. I think it's just going to be, some of these decisions are going to be health related too. Like with Gary Brightwell hurt right now, Cager has been banged up a couple of times, but has kind of fought through it and stayed on the field. Those are things that'll work out as well. But yeah, those tight ends also give you a lot on special teams as well as on offense. And we've seen a lot of 2 tight end sets as well in training camp. Who do you think will be our third at edge? Fox played well last game, and I don't think we have good depth there. Yeah, Dom, good question. Actually, the last time we did this, somebody asked me about what reinforcements were coming on edge, and I said that it was more important that they had reinforcements at D tackle. And I know that that's how the organization was thinking, but to the person who asked me that question last time, a couple of weeks ago, and to you, Dom, I think this has to be a concern and an issue that needs to be addressed, because, I mean, really the third guy is Jihad Ward. Like, you have like Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, and Jihad Ward is really like your early down run defender at that position, with Azeez, the pass rush specialist, who also plays run defense, and then Kayvon hopefully being the total package. I totally agree with you that in training camp, in preseason so far, Tamon Fox has clearly been the most noticeable at that position for sure. I know they like him. They loved him last year coming up. I do think that it is him right now. Edge is another place where if they can at any point, going into or during this season, just add somebody on the cheap or a veteran or, some kind of pass rush specialist to help you over there, that's something that you have to look at, because you're right, they're not very deep. Then you're hitting on something here that's important. The Giants are not a very deep team. They have some more talent on their roster, but they're not deep. And they have some glaring weaknesses at important positions, and they have a hard schedule right out of the gate. They are going to need to win a couple of these games they're not supposed to win earlier. This is going to be a long season. All right, let's see. Wired Celery says there were some reports of Neal having an ankle issue after coming up with the concussion. Any update on that? Jordan Ronan from ESPN noticed that at practice the other day. I did not pick up on the ankle thing. He said he got taped up, looked like he was laboring. Jordan saw it. That's what happened. I think any foot injury or lower body injury to Evan Neal, given his size, is not a good thing. You don't want him laboring in any way. You don't want him compromising his stance. If that's the case, and then there's no reason to play him on an injury. So that could be another guy that ends up not playing in this game, and that would be a related reason. It's very, strange. The other day they kind of had him in a real practice jersey, practicing full. Daboll says he's not cleared. Then they said he was. They do test guys after that first practice back to officially fully clear them. But obviously he was cleared to practice football, or else he wouldn't have been banging his head against people either in practice. With Evan Neal, I know with the Giants, Evan Neal's a good example of this, but Darren Waller, whatever. They have these guys that they're trying to get them to the regular season. They're trying to be healthy right out of the gate, because the Giants had a huge problem last year and have had a lot of problems in many years keeping players healthy. And last year, early season, the idea that they won games early was just a miracle, frankly, compared to the injuries they were suffering, the bodies they were losing, guys who were out. They were just really working without much when it came to health, and they still were able to eke out those wins before a second half of the season slide, but they still got in, win that playoff game. And even though the Eagles blew them out of the building in South Philadelphia, still able to feel good about Brian Daboll's first year. He wins Coach of the Year, winning one game out of 7 in the division, which is just unbelievably unprecedented. But the number one focus now is, okay, in year 2, how do we not only start well, but finish well? And how do we build on last year, keep guys healthy? Let's see. Do the Giants still get Darnay's cap relief if he makes the initial 53? And then, let me see. Hold on, getting a couple texts here. 1 second. Sometimes duty calls, but I'm not going anywhere. All right. Okay. So to answer your question, sorry about that. Just checking a few messages. So, do the Giants still get Darnay's cap relief if he makes the initial 53 and is then cut for a different corner that was cut at the deadline? I believe that they still get the cap savings. I think it's 2.7 million. They should get that cap savings. Let me see. Actually, I can look at his contract for you real quick and tell you. Let's see. Base salary, 2.7 million. Yeah, no, I believe they would still get that relief. Pretty sure they would still get that relief. That's a good question. I have to double check that, but I think they would. Yeah, no, he's a name. Like, if you're looking for a name that everybody knows who might not make the roster, that's a good one to start with for sure. Let's see. Next question. Oh, by the way, guys, everybody who's here, if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube page, please. We have a lot of fun content already here and a lot more coming. I promise you. This is going to be like kind of my new landing page for all these videos, all these podcasts, updates from practice. We're going to have a lot of fun here. So remember to subscribe. Please hit that like button now as we're talking right now. Those things help as well. YouTube kind of sends it out to more people as it starts getting likes. And then Giants fans who might not even know about this podcast yet, it'll pop up right in their face. They'll come in, they'll ask a question that hasn't been asked yet, and the dialogue will continue. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate having you here. Hit those thumbs up buttons, hit those like buttons, hit subscribe. Let's see. If the Giants go with Adoree in the slot, I'm thinking we don't cut Holmes, but instead ask for a salary cut and keep him as depth. Agree. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, even if he's underperforming, how many corners do they have who know the defense, who are capable NFL players as well, right? I mean, youth is a good thing. Development is a good thing. So when I'm looking at their roster here at corner, I see Nick McLeod, who is a guy who plays safety and corner. He's hurt right now, right? So that's one guy kind of off the board. You have Darren Evans, who's a young guy that they've liked, but they've brought him in and out, but I don't see making the roster. Jamon Green is a guy to take a look at. The rookie from Michigan. He's an undrafted free agent. He's made some plays on the ball. I really wouldn't shock me if even a guy like Green ended up on the roster, like Amani Oruwariye and Jamon Green, plus Cordell Flott behind those 3 starters. And then also the Giants going out and looking for more solutions on the waiver wire from teams' cuts free agency, etc. So that'll be something to watch. Let's see. But yes, no, so you asked me if I agree. Now, I think at the moment, I'm not putting Darnay Holmes on my 53 man roster. I hope he makes it. I like Darnay. I like him a lot. You know, and I would love to see him grab that slot corner, and then the Giants don't have to do what they've been showing, right? But so far he hasn't. But yeah, I like Darnay Holmes a lot. But at this moment, I think he needs to make plays. And this is why the preseason is still important, even though obviously there's a lot less importance on it than there used to be. It's important because guys like Darnay Holmes and guys like some of these other players, Jayshon Corbin at running back, who's starting to kind of climb, these are the opportunities. You know, you got to make it impossible for the coach and the GM to look at each other in the eyes and the face and say, we don't need this player or this is it, right? You just have to force their hand. And sometimes there's other factors outside of your control. But what a guy like Holmes can control is getting his hands on the ball, staying tight in coverage, no penalties in coverage, and playing well against Carolina Panthers and the New York Jets. Let's see. What do you expect the wide receiver rotation? Thanks for all those likes, guys. Hit subscribe, hit like, hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Keep them coming. What do you expect from the wide receiver rotation tonight, says Vincent. Vincent, I think, what we've seen a lot in practice probably is what you're going to see in the game. Now, Cole Beasley's been out with a leg issue, so it's possible he won't play in this game. Sterling Shepard, don't know. He has been on a program essentially, so he's looked great when he's been out there. But will they want to put him in any kind of real game or just keep ramping it up in practice? Probably wise to have, him maybe get a few snaps, but not play a lot. Be interesting to see there. Depends on whatever the training staff and Brian Daboll come up with for Shepard. But I think what we've seen consistently is Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton on the outside with Paris Campbell in the slot to start. And then Jalen Hyatt being really kind of like the first guy working in, depending on where he's going. If he's going outside, Hodgins is coming off. Maybe he's coming on, but Paris Campbell is staying on, but he's kind of bumping back to like a running back kind of jet sweep role. And now you have 4 receivers, but one is functioning kind of as a second running back. If that makes sense. We've seen a lot of that from the Giants. Colin Johnson has been injured and doesn't look like he's going to play as well, which is disappointing because really like him and also has had a good camp prior to that injury. David Sills, always a guy who shows out in the preseason. I hope for his sake he does again. Jamison Crowder, with Jamison Crowder and Jadon Mickens and Khalil Pimpleton, I think I look at those slot guys, and yes, they have a lot of slot receivers. Not everybody can make the team. This is a game for them to really show up. If Campbell gets a few snaps and then comes out, I think Jamison Crowder is a guy you should look at. I think Jadon Mickens is a guy who could really kind of help his cause with a big second half. Let's see. Mark, you're already a subscriber. I love it. Mark says Giants kept 7 less talented wide receivers last season. Do we keep 7 more talented wide receivers this season? I think receiver is a crowded group. And I think with Wan'Dale Robinson coming back, with Paris Campbell, so it's Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. So Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson. You have Sterling Shepard, right? I mean, it's a lot of bodies, a lot of guys you trust. Cole Beasley, a guy who Brian Daboll loves. So give me 1 second, guys. 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. No breaking news. Sorry. Business I had to take care of, not breaking news, but that would have been cool. I need that. You're right. I need a live. That's a good call. I need to set it up. Someone's going to feed me a scoop I'll say, well, let me do a live Q&A, 20 minutes into it, feed me. I'll do the call. I'll do the live on broadcast breaking news. We got to do that. But sorry, no, not right now. Sorry to do that to you. All right, let's see. We got Mark's already a subscriber, my man. Doug says, were your texts about Jadeveon Clowney to the Ravens? Yeah, a little bit of that. Little bit of kind of a lot of circumstances around some of these either signings or decisions or player movement and that kind of thing. Also getting some texts about, to be honest, this new Giants rule outside the locker room. So we got to get to the bottom of that. Let's see. Doug says, really appreciate all the answers and insight. Oh, I love doing this, man. I appreciate you guys being on this too. I want to do it more. I always intend to do at least once a week. Then sometimes I fall by the wayside, especially like when we were in Detroit, we had the trip and, it was just hard to kind of get it done, being mobile and being out there. But just so you guys know, I intend to do these once a week. I've ended up doing the first two here on Fridays. I don't know if that's how I'm going to consistently end up doing it. But just keep an eye out. And like I said, if you're a subscriber on YouTube, you will get pinged. You'll get an alert that I'm going live and that I've gone live and that I am live when I am. And that should help us kind of get this community rolling, keep it consistent and keep it growing as well, which would be great. All right. Wired Celery says, looking ahead some, are there any big money in-house contracts next season other than X? Oh, Xavier McKinney. Yeah, which even with Xavier McKinney, like I'm not exactly sure that we'll see. I mean, if he has an enormous year, then a big contract conversation and discussion is worthwhile there. But to me, you got a player who showed some promise and had some disappointments and needs to prove himself. So, I'm not looking at this like Xavier McKinney is a guy that the Giants have to take care of right now. And this is something we got to talk about all season. Like, no, he has to play well this season, stay healthy, hopefully the hands better, leadership aspect, all of that. You got to see more of it. You got to see it consistently. And then we can talk about that. Well, Leonard Williams, I mean, based on his contract, this is, his last season on the team, I would think, based on how his contract is laid out, unless he is completely revived and just has an enormous season and kind of proves that his contract is, practically underpaying him. But, coming off last year, a really durable guy showing the first signs of some injuries and having a disappointing year, a lot to prove for him. But the Giants, remember, Joe Shane came in. He's really had a difficult time kind of prying himself away from the last regime's financial management. And that includes the current cap guys in the building. So this has been a slow and steady process, but a guy like Leonard Williams, the highest paid player on your team right now, that's something I would look for. He ends up leaving. You end up adding more pieces in the draft on the interior defensive line. Of course, Saquon Barkley as well, an enormous one to watch next season. So, I mean, you're talking about two of the biggest names on the team. So absolutely. Let's see. What else we got? Will Shane have any more Giants conferences before the bye week? You mean press conferences? I don't think so. I don't think there's one on the schedule. Not that I know of anyway. But we'll see. But yeah, probably not until the bye week. Where does Marcus McKeithen fit in? Probably, yeah, you got it, Vince. Probably Mark, probably on the practice squad, I think, to start. He's a guy who just is getting healthy from last year, being worked in at the guard rotation. So guy, hopefully that you start on your practice squad. And then if he shows promise at guard, is practicing well, and your guard situation is still a mess as it looks like it is right now, then you give him a shot in games. But yeah, this is definitely a season that even though expectations are pretty high for the Giants, this is still a rebuilding roster with a lot of young guys who are developing and still trying to prove themselves. So I think all the fans should just recognize that. Because like if a guy like McKeithen is coming in and playing, let's say in week 5 or 6, yeah, it might be practicing well. It also might be a really bad sign for the way the starters have looked in the first 4 weeks, right? So these are things to look for. Dom says, what role do you think Wan'Dale will have? And do you think he'll be ready for Dallas? He's very overlooked, in my opinion. Yeah, Dom, unfortunately, he's overlooked because even though he had a few promising touches last year, when he was on the field, his undersized nature, like he would get hit, he would get rocked. And of course, he ends up getting hurt with that and had a couple injuries, just taking huge hits over the middle, huge hits in the middle of the field. He needs to, a guy like him needs to be elusive, and he is fast and he can be elusive, but he can't take hits like that and stay on the field. So I think the way they're going to use him is maybe as a jet sweep running back slash receiver kind of gadget guy, which is really what he is. Of course, a second round pick, you like him to be more than that, but a lot riding there for Joe Shane. You know, your second round pick, Wan'Dale Robinson, third round pick, Josh Azudu. You need these guys to kind of take another step in year two. Let's see. I know you may not have been paying too much attention, but did any Lions players stand out from joint practices that Giants could pick up off wagers like Cager and Pinnock last year? No, really, really Jahmyr Gibbs, which is not a guy you're going to end up picking up, but he very much stood out. The running back out of Alabama, first round pick. He was making people look silly, and I think he's going to make people look silly in the regular season. Take him on your fantasy team. Let's see. Elite for Master Will. How do you feel about Bobby Johnson's comments on the rotation versus what Pugh said to you a few days ago? I mean, listen, they're rotating because they don't have two guys that they can say these are our two best guards. I think when Justin Pugh is saying he's talking to a lot of teams in the league and he would really like to return to the Giants, I think Pugh is looking at this situation and probably seeing the same thing I am. And I think, frankly, a Giants reunion for Pugh and the team would make sense. Of course, the Giants aren't like overflowing with cash, so that's sometimes an issue. Maybe that's an issue with Anthony Barr right now. I don't know. But I think the comments Justin Pugh made to me, offensive linemen don't grow on trees. And if you can upgrade, you do it. And if you bring me in, this is him talking, I'm going to start on your team and I'm going to beat people out because you're not solidified there and I'm going to show I can do it. I think that's where the Giants are right now. So I think Justin Pugh should be and is an option for a team like the Giants who are unsettled at that position. But this Carolina game is going to go an even further way to determining that. The Giants want Josh Azudu clearly to grab that left guard job. He just hasn't yet and might not. And then Glowinski, interestingly, at right guard too. I think you should go read my story. There was a section of what Bobby Johnson said about Mark Lewinsky. He and Brian Daboll both have had talks with him about what their expectations are for him. He said he's doing everything they ask of him. But he did say just because the guy has, a high cap hit, it's 8.3, I think, million this year, was Joe Shane's pretty much top free agent signing last year, him and Tyrod Taylor. Just because he's getting paid a certain thing doesn't mean he's not held accountable and held to the same standard. So both of those spots up for grab, and Ben Bredesen's a guy they trust. So that's why he's rotating in with both of them. But they certainly need some bodies there. Let's see. Mark Thompson says, a Dory contract discussion caught me off guard after thinking earlier was an obvious discussion. Does this really happen, especially with a move to the slot? I like a Dory. That sounded premature to me, a little strange. I didn't really even do much with it because it kind of caught me off guard and just isn't a thing that this current regime, I think, should be thinking about and investing in at this exact moment, unless Adoree, shows out again. Like, he had a promising year last year until the injury, but he does have an injury history. He tackled well. He was playing well. And then kind of, you saw the Seattle Seahawks really attack him and go right after him. And they felt like they knew exactly how to beat him, and they did. And so, listen, you can't get rid of good players if you're not a great team. So the Giants can't just be letting guys like Adoree Jackson walk out the door when they're still trying to build a solid team and you want established players. But that's something I think I kind of raised my eyebrow and said, really? They talked extension last year? That's a little bit odd. So I think I'm going to keep watching that. I think health is a key there. Let's see. I do like Adoree, though, as a guy, as a player in the room. How closely does the regime monitor the growth of Tyrod Taylor? Someone I've always been confused about. He has the stature and physical traits to be good, but his decisions are always head scratching. I think there's no doubt. I think Tyrod probably tell you too, like, his practices actually before that first preseason game, his camp had been really good. And then the game against Detroit was not. That was a kind of an ill-advised throw where Cole Beasley got rocked underneath, where like he was open, then he saw it late, then he threw it late, and he kind of runs him into a hit. Obviously not intentional, but Tyrod, I think, is very talented. I think he could very much start for an NFL team and be effective, but certainly you can't be that loose with the ball. I do think he gives receivers chances in camp. I think the receivers and his teammates appreciate that. He throws a lot downfield, throws a beautiful deep ball, has a lot of mobility. But I agree with you. I mean, I think he needs to play better, absolutely, against Carolina than he did against Detroit. I think he would probably be the first person to tell you that too. Guys, this was great. We've gone 40 minutes. That's awesome. I'm going to have to wrap it up now, but please come back the next time. Like I said, subscribe, hit those thumbs up, hit the like buttons. You guys have been great today. A lot of questions, a lot of good questions. Um, Disappointingly, I'm actually not going to be at this game. I have to go to a family wedding. It's a commitment. Had to do it. I will be monitoring from afar though, watching the tape when I get home and downloading in full on Saturday on people's performances on Friday. Daboll will have a conference call on Saturday. We'll kind of talk to him, get some updates. Will be interesting though to see how the starters perform. Obviously, kind of their primary test in a game and really only test in a game most likely before we see them in week 1 in Dallas. So thanks again for joining. Who do we got here? Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Dom. Thanks, Mark. Doug says, would love to know how players think about the new turf. They say they like it. It'll be interesting, though, to see after they play a real game on it. That is a great point, Doug. See, you guys are awesome, man. This is great. No, that's a great point. That'll be something to kind of download with them on next week as well when we get back to camp and they've played 4 full quarters on that turf. I can tell you I have stood on it in their indoor practice facility and it feels different in a good way. But we'll see if it helps guys' bodies hold up a little bit better. All right. Thanks again. Great time. Great stuff. See you later. Check me out. Talkin Ball podcast. Subscribe on Spotify, on Apple. Subscribe to YouTube. You can find me on the Daily News, Twitter, Threads. I'm on there at PL on NFL, Instagram at PL on NFL. And like I said, have no fear. The arrivals are staying here. The game arrivals are staying. We are going to get them done. Don't worry.